I'm thinking about really excited young kids at parties who come up and are so excited to see my child. And oh, yay, this child's here. I can't wait to play with you, blah, 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 and starts talking rapidly to my child. And she's definitely not ready. I'm trying to think what can I do to, I want to welcome the social interaction, but also like,
I'll give you a great idea with younger children.
Mm-hmm.
Come with a game or an activity that's
Mm-hmm.
a reciprocal game. That's what we're doing here at camp as well, to help integrate them together. And if you have something, hey, we brought some different things we can do together. Let's sit over here or go over there. That is what it takes. It reminds me of like when you're on a beach and you see some kids and you sit down and you do the shoveling with the sand. It's not about talking right in that moment. It's about getting them connected. Comfort precedes communication. So getting a moment where you can just kind of be away from the group, maybe in a little den, in the kitchen in a side area. Well, kitchen's usually hustle bustle during the holidays, let's be honest. But a den that you can go into and kind of just get that warm up going, that's, really, really important. If it's a relative you're very comfortable with, sometimes, like if they come to your house, having your daughter or son have a role, really having a role in that social encounter, having made some of the meal and being proud to show it. That's a confidence booster. He set or she set the table. Having a role with a sibling or a cousin or a friend to gather the coats. So now you're just collecting the coats, giving out the cookies, giving out the stickers, just getting that moving. Think of it as almost like you're dancing, but you're stimulating everything. And that is all about nonverbal, but it's social engagement. And from there, the communication comes. Now, this is different than the child that can say to somebody as soon as they walk in, hi, how are you? We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about how do we get these highly sensitive children connected during the holidays so they're not completely shut down and overwhelmed. What are the things we can do to bring down that anxiety so they feel successful? The hi-bye game, the hi-bye copy game, whether it's high-fiving people, whether mom says hi, the child copies and says hi, or see if we can beat that person to say hi if they're verbal. There's all these types of different games. For some, it's head up, eye contact, smile, say hi, for the kids that are ready to be verbal and working on. So for most kids, you don't work on eye contact. Isn't that interesting? The only ones you work on eye contact with are kids that really struggle even when they're comfortable. So if you see what I mean? Some kids with some delays and so forth, we do work on the eye contact. And there are some kids that from their social anxiety, it's really rough. But for the majority, you do not work on it because with comfort comes eye contact. So if your child's avoidant of eye contact, you're not going to say, look at Uncle Bill when he talks to you. You don't want to say that because it will come naturally. The other thing is that educating others through that About My Child worksheet is do avoid eye contact. When you greet your child, don't go right up to Lucas and say, hi, Lucas, how are you? Focus on the family, focus on others, then come back. And avoid direct eye contact right away to your child because that does put the expectation. So I guarantee if you went into a social event and took that pressure off, worked on social engagement, you're going to see so much more progress. So does that helps all that? Anything you're thinking?
I was just thinking like the pre-planning it's exciting to know that I can I need to, and a good reminder to just slow down during this time and pre-plan so that when we get into the situation that I know how to take over or not take over, but
navigate.
Navigate it. Right.
So that SM triangle that we talk about where the person asks a question, then you bring them in or you know what I mean? Where I talk a lot about it. It's so hard on a podcast to talk about the SM triangle without the visual. So we'll have that in our resources for our listeners. But I'm such a believer in the SM triangle where you don't talk for your child. You don't tell your child to say something if they're not ready. And you need to kind of bring them in through either choice or direct question and preparing with the visuals if you need to kind of bring them in so they start using their words towards you. And as they get louder and louder, they're heard and now they're verbal. So that's how that verbal intermediary works. So it does help in a lot of situations. You just kind of rewording. You also have to give people a chance. So if they ask a question, you don't want to jump right in because then what happens is you're missing the opportunity for them to process and maybe turn to you naturally or to say it quietly. There are a lot of kids in session when I give them extra time, they actually answer. I'm amazed. And often the parents will say, well, the give and take kind of came and went, but we have to almost give them that chance. And I know sometimes it's an awkwardness, but it's amazing how we do and not stare them down, but just kind of diddle daddle so to speak. And then all of a sudden, sometimes the answers come. It's interesting how that works, because a lot of our kids with anxiety, it takes them longer to process. So as conversations are coming and going, they're missing it. And they're just like, and as you're answering, or siblings or cousins or people are answering, what happens is the kids are the passengers in the car. That's the other thing I just want to bring up. The holidays are a wonderful time to practice your goals in settings they can do. So going out to the store, one of your questions was like going out and about, going to a store with your list of things you need. Instead of just you guys walking around, use that as a time to engage with a person in the store, approaching that person and saying, excuse me, miss, can you help us? Turning to your child and saying, hey, are we looking for this or that? And then, or what are we looking for those that can handle that open-ended question? And they're playing either a scavenger hunt for little kids, or they're doing the store exposure or store game. So instead of just going or sending your spouse out and about, use that as a time to bring your child and go during off times. Don't go to Target at 2:00 on a Saturday to shop for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever holiday you're celebrating. Go during an off time so that the success is there, and search out a store clerk. Guess what? Search out a female more than a male. A lot of our highly sensitive kids get overwhelmed by male voices. So finding a female, believe it or not, there's nothing wrong with finding a male if that's who you find. I'm not saying you can't. So for my listeners that think, what is she saying? A lot of our children do, especially younger kids, do better with young females, because often their teachers, for the majority, are female, and the caretaker, old image, right? But the voice is softer, and it's not as does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we're going to have that success, sometimes if your child is sensitive to the voice and the boisterousness of a male, that can be, definitely approach a female, but use these exposures. And because they're motivated, they're going to have a cookie making play date or get together. They're going to bake a cake get together, going out and getting the ingredients. You're going to Aunt Sally's house. You're having a couple friends over to make cookies, to make Christmas or Hanukkah decorations or whatever holiday. That's a wonderful time during the holidays. The parents are often like, yes, we have 2 weeks off. I'd love to have a get together with you. Making cookies, doing art projects are the big one. And doing that with the kids, focus on another child first. So if you have a recipe, I'm big with visual recipes. You can search them on Etsy or Google, and they're visual recipes. For our kids that are readers, but even just love the pictures, a visual recipe is great. Make it so it's the same 3 to 4 recipes over and over. So they know it, they own it, they're the big shot with it. What do we need now? Focusing on the other child first. So turning to the child and go, do you want to add the eggs or the water? Then your child has a chance to process that. But then turn to your child. Do you want to add the sugar or the flour? No answer, sugar or flour. Lean in, tell me. Right? And then hey, let's just do it. So you start with verbal, but you bridge down so that they're successful. And it's not, you need to talk to your friend. You should do that because you're so old. No, it's let's accept it and work with the bridge. But you don't always have to work with the bridge, because if you work too much with the bridge, it becomes like anxiety. It's almost like the bridge, they have their games they might be playing or their goals they're working on, but make certain things natural. You don't have to chart every handover takeover. You don't have to chart every time they tell you. But if you're doing the games and goals, that's when you chart. You don't want to back up and say, oh my gosh, right now you're doing this. But maybe later say, hey, I noticed last time we had a get together, that was really hard for you. You were really handing and taking then, but now you're starting to use your words. And look, you were able to tell me, what would you say that feels like on your feelings chart? I am so proud of you for doing that. You were so brave today by doing that with us. So no, I am not an advocate of brave talking if they're not ready to brave talk. I'm an advocate of being brave, but our kids are brave just showing up half the time. And that's the difference. It's that, yes, I want them to be confident social communicators that are verbal, but we have to respect where their baselines are and what other factors may be contributing to why they're not as verbal or why they're not as communicative. Loud, large, lots of people, overwhelmed, language issues, learning challenges, processing delays, being bilingual and having to process the new language or a different, there's so many reasons why children, and then of course how we parent them is going to make a big difference.